Hi, I'm Daniel Koenig, and I will be presenting my capstone project for ET240, a hydroelectric assessment for a potential client in Watauga County, North Carolina. So, let me give you some more information about this site. It is centered around a moderately sized stream that is 200 feet away from the client's residence. The stream has a minimum flow of 1.2 cubic feet per second and a maximum of 8, which corresponds to 539 GPM and 3,591 respectively. Thus, the system I am proposing is micro-hydroelectric, as it only needs to be sufficient to power a home that requires 1,070 kilowatt hours of energy. This schematic, courtesy of Professor Shiflett, gives a visual representation of the site, and I may reference it periodically throughout the video. So now that we've covered some of the logistics of the site, why exactly is this site ideal? There's actually a variety of factors that are significant about this area, and thinking back to the schematic already, I said there was a 40-degree angle between the river and the house. So to find the head, or elevation difference between the water and the turbine, which is also the total vertical drop, I did some basic trigonometry and equated the sine of 40 to x over 200, which gives a value of about 150 feet. The site can also produce about 200 GPM, which makes this site capable of providing enough energy for the client. This was calculated by finding power, converting to kilowatts, multiplying by several conversion factors, and then multiplying by a capacity factor. The final calculation ended up being 1,404 kilowatt hours of energy. However, the client only needs 1,070, but has the potential to do other things with that excess energy, which I will discuss later in the video. Now we're going to get into the technology/components of the system. From this class, I learned a diversion can take many forms and either be exceptionally expensive or relatively cheap, as long as it fits the application both logistically and ecologically. So I decided on an open-ended pipe with a settling container. The benefits include that this mechanism is relatively inexpensive, low maintenance, and can be set up with a mesh screen to filter out fine particles. Nonetheless, there are some drawbacks, as turbulence can be extremely detrimental to the system because this disruption can cause a lot of undesirable air bubbles in the penstock. For piping, I chose HDPE pipe, which stands for high density polyethylene. A picture can be seen in the right-hand corner of your screen, just in case you're curious as to what it looks like. I chose HDPE as it has a wide array of benefits. Not only will it follow the contour of the ground, it is very durable, so think impact resistance, and it is also very resistant to elements, like freezing temperatures. This is actually the complete opposite from its PVC counterpart. And in fact, HDPE is especially necessary because of the site location in Watauga County, which is a pretty cold mountainous region where things can freeze and the terrain is super uneven. The one drawback to HDPE is the cost, however, as it is one of the most expensive piping options, which may detract the client from actually using it. As far as this system goes, I'm going to suggest to the client the use of a 3-inch pipe. In this scenario, low loss or static head multiplied by a 5% coefficient is 7.5 feet, which can be subtracted from the static head to get 142.5 feet of dynamic head. High loss generates 30 and 120 respectively. Also, with 3-inch pipe, there's approximately 7.69 feet of head loss per 100 feet of pipe, which gives a grand total of 15.38 feet of total head loss, which can be subtracted from the static head to find net dynamic head. In this case, it'll be 135 feet. This calculation will be useful for later in the video, so since the total head loss is between the high and low loss parameters, it shows that the 3-inch pipe is probably the best choice. With 2-inch piping, there will be too much head loss due to friction, and while 4-inch pipe will result in less friction losses, the cost does not outweigh the savings. For turbines, the Harris system is an efficient, durable battery-charged Pelton turbine. It is designed to produce usable household energy from springs and streams that are too small to sustain the useful power from a conventional AC generating system. But because DC power can be shared, the system is collecting 24 hours a day, a little at a time, to be used as needed. This is a perfect fit for the client for those reasons. This is a picture of a Harris turbine with 4 nozzles, and is not unlike the one I am proposing to my client. So if you see here, you can see the nozzles right there, right there, right there, and right there as well. In the middle is the Pelton wheel, and the water is going to go through the nozzles into the Pelton wheel, causing the Pelton wheel to spin and generate power. So now that we have finished covering the technology and components, I want to talk a little bit about the resource availability for the system, which is ultimately dictated by the flow of the river. In this case, the minimum flow is 539 GPM, converted from 1.2 CFS, and a flow of 200 GPM is a little bit taxing. However, this only occurs at the minimum and overall should be acceptable, especially since flow can be adjusted with the nozzles. Of course, this is assuming clean water with no blockages. Additionally, this doesn't account for dry spells or heavy rains, as well as for the potential of water freezing, which may cause complications in actually acquiring the resource. Well, I've talked a lot about the site and the system, but I haven't really touched on any economic or fiscal considerations, mainly the cost of the system itself. So let me change that. How much is this thing gonna cost? The turbine itself looks to run at about $2,200 due to the fact that it'll have 4 nozzles. The power conditioning equipment, which protects from overcharging, will cost about $200. For 250 feet of HDPE pipe, and again, I'm buying more just in case there's a detour needed for terrain purposes or something goes wrong, it's going to be about $1,125. For an average intake system, it will be about $200, and the fan kit will run at around $75. Also, renting a fusion welder may be necessary for the HDPE pipe, so that's another $150. So, summing all of these produces a total cost of about $3,950, which brings me to my next question. Is it worth it? The answer is in short, is yes. The client should pursue this option under the assumption that 1 kilowatt hour of energy is worth about 15 cents, which is fairly standard. Then the client recoups his investment in just over 2 years. At 1,070 kilowatt hours, there is a cost of $160.50 a month. The total cost divided by this is the payback period, which comes out to be 24.61 months. So how much energy can this system really offset? The system contains 3 1/2 inch nozzles and 1 7/16 inch nozzle, and at approximately 135 feet of dynamic head, which was calculated a little earlier, there will be an adjustable flow between 43 GPM and 209 GPM. Since it's adjustable, the client will be able to manage how much power they are producing. But to answer the original question, the system can offset any range up to 1,404 kilowatt hours of energy per month, which allows the client to take care of the entirety of their household energy consumption. The excess may be needed in case of stream issues regarding flow and climate, or could be used to power any other miscellaneous entities. Continuing the discussion of economic and fiscal considerations for the client is the topic of tax and other monetary incentives. For example, there is the financing program for renewable energy and energy efficiency and the green building incentive. The latter is a residential financial enticement that allows all counties and cities within North Carolina to provide reductions or partial rebates for permit fees. Although it is very unlikely that the client will need to get a permit from the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission or any other federal or state agency, local ordinances may require it, or laws may change in the near future. On the other hand, the former incentive may prove useful to the client immediately. If they were incapable of paying the entire lump sum of just shy of $4,000, then this statute would allow them to take out a loan to finance their renewable energy project. The terms of the loan are pretty reasonable as well, at a maximum of 8% annually. Of course, if the client opts to take this loan, his or her payback period will obviously increase. Finally, there are the policies that might influence the implementation of this microhydroelectric system. For one, the client would most likely have to apply for the exemption of a license or permit from the FERC on the grounds that even though it does occupy U.S. lands, it does not utilize surplus waters from government property, is not located on a U.S. waterway, and is not located on a body of water within the Commerce Clause jurisdiction. All that would probably be the extent of things, as the system would have negligible impact on the environment, and the client would most likely not be selling any power. However, if he or she did want to sell that excess power, then they might be able to utilize a relatively new North Carolina policy on net metering. which allows consumers who generate their own electricity to sell their surplus back to the electric grid. This would decrease the payback period and further incentivize the client to build this system. So, this concludes my video, and I hope my hypothetical client hires me and follows my recommendations. I also hope you found this video informative and well presented. Thanks for listening.